The Honorable Jeremiah KIONI, good morning.
Morning.
Good to have you again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Tunashukuru Mungu. Tuko hai. Tumeona mwaka mpya. And we have an opportunity to do something, if you can.
Yes.
That's why we are kept alive.
Yes.
And I like the issue of the snakes and the thorns. Because, now I'm in the opposition. And when you are an opposition person, you are permanently running in the thorns. And you never know whether you are being chastened or something is right there. But it sounded very familiar to the grounds that the way I felt in the last 1 or 2 weeks. Yes, you can't quite tell whether, you have to do things that perhaps some of us never thought we would. I have to play opposition politics, and it's full of risks because you have to say many things that people may not want said, but you must say them because if it happens the correct way, opposition means that you are the minority. But of course, when it is accurate, but whichever way, that's where we are. When you're in the minority, they say that give the majority their way.
The minority their say.
But give the minority their say. So all that we may have is our say. And when you are saying it, it's some risks that you take. So the snake, hii nyoka, na thorns, na Madagascar, sijui wapi, Mozambique. Have something to do with us this morning.
If you're not pricked by a thorn,
yes,
you'll be bitten by a snake.
Yes.
Either way,
something is going to happen.
Utaumwa. Upende utachigwa, utapigwa.
And then, of course, you remain hopeful because you have God on your side.
What has happened in the last 2 weeks? Because, Mheshimiwa, you're speaking as if you're somebody who has actually not just walked on thorns, but even just sat and slept on a bed of thorns.
You see, we've been quite at it on IEBC. I know the statements of yesterday are really scared to many of us. Not because of anything, but when they come from the head of state, you then know that you've not been apprehensive for nothing. But my idea is that we have a country that's where it is because of some sacrifices that individuals made. And one of the major achievements of this country was electoral reforms that gave birth to IEBC. And in the last 1 or 2 weeks, maybe more than 1 or 2 weeks, we've been a little worried because we see a commission whose term is coming to an end. And we are not ready for another commission. And again, that when if you know what we went through, to then be left with a country and offices that don't have commissioners, and even the route to appoint new commissioners is also not clear. You will understand why some of us feel, what is this? How could we have lost so much within such a short while? And so when again you sit and you want to wave bye-bye to somebody, and then you are told something, you wonder, what did I just hear? The utterances of our president yesterday.
What did you read from what the president was saying? Because he actually spoke very strongly about the events of Bomas of Kenya.
Yes.
And he was speaking as he was bidding goodbye to the exiting 3 commissioners. What is it that you read from what the president was saying?
I read of what I saw, a person who has not quite accepted that he is the head of state. Who is not happy with the outcome of the results of 2022.
Not happy?
Yes, certainly not happy. who is doubtful of the mandate that he is on his shoulders of running a country, and who is also not certain as to what to do next and whether what he intends to do next will be accepted. That is a message that came, of course.
Why do you say that?
Because
to those of us who are uninitiated politically,
yes,
we just take it at face value. The president is actually looking and revisiting what happened, and we all know what happened. We saw commissioners speaking from two different platforms with two different messages that played out even in the Supreme Court, that has played out even since then. And you were saying, look, these things happened. What Wafula Chebukati alleged in his affidavit before the Supreme Court, we assume that the president has consumed it in terms of intelligence reports, and that was he was repeating yesterday, that there were direct and specific attempts at subverting the will of the people at Bomas of Kenya.
I have been a witness of transition of power in this country closely on two occasions. When power was moving from President Moi to Kibaki, and when it was moving from Kibaki to Uhuru. And one of the dramatic things that happens is, for example, when it was Kibaki, you remember Kibaki had an accident. So he was not available everywhere. It was at Muthaiga.
Yeah.
So he was declared the president elect when he was still at Muthaiga. And some of us then knew where we needed to rush is to Muthaiga to go and say congratulations. And among us was one of his closest friends, or in the struggle, Kijana Wamarwa. We got to Muthaiga kwa gate yake. And the way we had gotten to just getting there, you are ushered in any case, we are talking about how we are going to win. Things had changed. So we get to the gate and we are told, you cannot see the president that way. He needs to clear you.
Meanwhile, yesterday you were just there like...
Not yesterday. A little earlier in the morning.
Before.
And I could see one of the person who was thoroughly shocked was Kijana Wamarwa, and I don't think he quite recovered. They might have contributed to his illness from that onwards. Because a person they were with, then a person whom, of course, informally they must have agreed that was going to be the vice president. He can't see him. He has to be cleared. We are the gate, and the gate is locked, and it's a question of being asked, who are you?
Until they know very well who you are.
Yes, of course. Thereafter, we move forward to when Uhuru was declared the president. That time, Uhuru, of course, had traveled to Bomas. And with his motorcade, the driver, and everybody. And the minute he was declared president, his own driver called Karaja found himself like 10 cars away from the person he ferried to Bomas. And he was not even told that he was not going to ferry him back. So he was looking, where is my
man? Where is my
Toka
boss?
kwa barabara. Poop, poop. And the message is this: you are not dealing with an ordinary person from that minute onwards. And the person who has now been declared the head of state needed also to wake up to that reality. In the name of Kibaki, I could tell you that he had been in those things. So even the speech that was being taken, you could see him doing away with it, because he is not talking like the head of opposition of DP or something. Now he's talking to the nation.
And the world.
And the whole world.
Right.
And the same thing with Uhuru. He may have gone to the Catholic, and that Catholic meeting was like a bye-bye to you guys. We had been saying this. So what it also means is that what you say henceforth, you must be very careful. You must process it. So when yesterday the head of state comes and says you wanted to murder this person, that is very scary. You want a head of state who will actually inform the agencies to deal with any of such information that he receives.
Not say it.
not come and say it, because when you say, you now move to the point of being the source of hope
That something will be then done.
for us, and you become an object of fear. So it's like we are losing the country and we are moving apart. The head of state must always start there, and we see hope, all of us, whether you voted for him or not. Any difficulties that may have been occasioned as you are heading there, there are agencies to deal with those issues. Confidential information that may have been shared with him, whether accurate or otherwise, is processed by others. Instructions, go and do, are never given on a platform. But that yesterday was like the climax of what we have seen in the 120 days.
Is that why you're saying that he doesn't seem to be happy being president?
He
Why?
didn't show happiness.
But there's
I mean,
nothing to be
it's-
happy about.
Well, this is a-
Jeremiah.
There is
We
a
had
lot.
Listen.
We don't want
Jeremiah,
him
we
to
had
be
this
happy.
conversation a few minutes, just an hour ago, talking about this very story, and we said, look, by the time the president has come out to say that such a threat existed at that point, and that what he's trying to do is circumvent something like that from happening in the future, find out what really happened. There's a hope that there will be something that is being done, not just talking about it, but. Excuse me, wouldn't that then present a situation whereby you can see, actually, hold on a minute, he actually wants this kind of thing to never happen again?
He's not sweeping it under the
He's
carpet.
not sweeping it, he's not hiding it.
Confirming
He's
it
coming
to the
out
world
in the
that
open and he's
indeed
saying, look,
this happened.
yes, this thing happened. It was terrible. We will not allow such a thing to happen again. And that is why we're going to have an inquiry into it. And if we find that those who responsible for it actually did something untoward, we will then hold them responsible. Does it not show that he's actually holding on
fact,
to the mantle of power?
He is showing, to me, he is again a person who is not certain of the powers that he has with him. We have a chairman of an independent commission. And if you want to know how heavy this is, you need to know, to go through the history of why do we have commissions in our constitution, provided for in our constitution,
Protected by.
and protected by the constitution. Commissions, constitutional commissions, and constitutional office holders, like the one of DPP. Why did we have them in the constitution? And I sat in the constitution making process in this country. And that was informed by the fact that we as Kenyans did not have faith in entrusting the functions given to commissions and constitution offices with the executive anymore. We want you as a Kenyan. You are not elected. We have appointed you and given you this constitution protection to ensure that this office functions independent of the executive.
Yep.
So what happened yesterday? The IEBC commissioner handed itself back officially to the executive.
How so?
By in every way, everything they did yesterday. And let me say it properly because Kisugu na inaweza leta mashida. And fortunately for us as Kenyans, by the design of the Almighty Maker, he had two commissions appearing at the same time. IEBC and EACC. Wafula Chebukati was there. He came to say kwaheri. Of course, he must have been invited. And he came. He didn't have even a piece of paper. There was nothing to hand over to the head of state. The other one has a bundle of papers handing over to the head of state. These are independent commissions. Any report that leaves their offices, the way it leaves the offices and the offices that receive it is provided for in the constitution. When you come as the chairman of the commission of IEBC and you hand over a report to the executive, behind you there is no single commissioner who has been left standing. It is a shell. you have handed us back to the executive to now constitute another commission and dictate upon that commission.
Aye.
That was never meant to be.
Aye.
And I want to tell you again, look at Chebukati. Not Chebukati, no, Wabukara. Wabukara was struggling to almost find out, why should I be here? I have nothing written. I've just come to say Kwaheri. And he had left.
Mm-hmm.
He was invited back to take a photo with the president.
But he was there.
Look at the optics.
But he was there.
Because if you are called to be there.
The Archbishop of Bukala was
Yes.
there, not in his personal capacity.
Yes.
Not even because he's chairman, but because he's representing the commission. The president had invited all constitutional commissions and all independent offices. That's why we had the Auditor General there, the Controller of Budget there as well, so that we have a conversation as head of state on how we engage and ensure that these independent offices and commissions work and they deliver on their mandates. So when you say that these commissions, by appearing for this meeting, is like they're subjecting themselves to the executive, I fail to see the connection.
I get what I'm saying. I'm picking on two commissions, IEBC and EACC,
Whose chairpersons are exiting.
the terms were coming to an end at the same time. Look at how they exited the scene. One, clearly demonstrating that I have left a functioning office. In fact, the vice chair is here. So as you walk to EACC today, you are going to find a functioning commission.
Yep.
Walk to IEBC today.
You will not find a commissioner.
One has a report handing over to the executive against the provisions of the constitution.
Who should he handle?
They are they are independent first and foremost.
Yes.
They actually are answerable to Parliament. And that's why the reports are given to the executive and Parliament. To the executive, point of information. To Parliament, to debate on the issues that have been raised and take the necessary action. More often than not, passing laws to help us manage the affairs of that commission going forward.
So essentially, if the report has recommendations, you're saying, and is handed to Parliament, Parliament then has the task of ensuring that whatever vehicle is required to ensure that those recommendations are acted upon, the burden of that rests on Parliament.
It rests on Parliament, and that's why even in terms of budget making, it's with Parliament. So if it's a question of how much money, how much more do we give this commission to function, it's a parliamentary thing.
I think
and we actually put the executive out of this because why we fought and killed one another, shed blood in this country, was because some of the functions that had been as a responsibility of the executive were being managed poorly. One of them, key and top of it, was the issue of our electoral process. How do you get readers in this country? Those people come before you and tell you what to do, and tell you what they intend to do with your taxes, and tell you how much you should pay as taxes. So Chebukati is there. And yesterday, he handed us over back to the executive.
Has such a report,
Let me
a
also
similar
tell you,
report, been handed over to Parliament? Are you saying that no such thing has happened?
The reports are handed to Parliament periodically and on defined dates. It's not haphazard.
Okay. Has there been
All
a
through
delay?
before. Before those reports have come to Parliament, other heads of states have had their copies. When did you see them receiving them in State House?
Maybe this was symbolic.
Other heads of state have been there when these commissions have existed. When did you see the commission getting instructions from a head of state?
We have seen reports being handed to presidents.
From the commissions?
Yes.
Give me an example.
Even from ODPP, pictures of the commissions and just in the meetings and saying, so this is part of the work that we've been doing.
So I'm asking the question:
Is it not?
is that symbolic?
There is something that was done by IEBC after the elections of 2017, which was an audit thing. It is not the constitutional reports that are supposed to come on periodically, either quarterly. I can't remember the exact timing, but it is provided for in the Constitution. And once they have been received by Parliament, the Speaker must notify the whole Assembly that I have now received this. In fact, they are tabled by the reader of government business. And the committee in charge must then get to debate that report and file their findings on the report within Parliament. But even if you want to move forward and leave that as an issue that we can continue debating for a long time, look at it again. The president talks about the manda that was intended on Chebukati and his commissioners. One, of course, you would expect that in the course of today or tomorrow we will be given an OB number, because these issues are supposed to be reported to the police. If there is an intent to murder, is a very serious offense in this country.
Indeed.
So we expect that the necessary agencies will be giving us even the names of those who intended to murder Chebukati and the commissioners. That should be shared with Kenyans. But outside that also, this president was also in power when Musando was murdered. Forget about now intent. Murdered. And that seems to have just disappeared because we never got to know anything else. This commissioner called Chebukati was supposed to have left office on the 17th of November last year. If you are serving your terminal leave, you don't get to start your terminal leave in office.
No.
Terminal means you are on leave for purposes of receiving payment for the X number of months or days that you are supposed to have been on leave while you are working. And it is terminal because we don't want to see you back in these offices after today. Chebukati proceeds on leave, terminal leave, on 17th of November last year. And on 18th of November last year, Chebukati is the first in office, ahead of even the sweepers. And he has maintained that until yesterday morning. What is this he was hiding? What is this he was so fearful of being exposed?
Surely.
How is
let's
it?
Let's take a break. No.
Oh,
Hey. We will continue with it. Let's take a break. We need some minute bait.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So we continue the conversation with Jeremiah KIONI, the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. He's here today, guns blazing. Yesterday, the President was meeting with the Constitutional Commissioners and independent office holders, and he spent quite some time in his prepared speech. This was not an off-the-cuff speech. It was actually a written speech, which you know that the President must have looked at prior to this. And he came and talked about the events of Bomas last year, in August last year. And he went to great lengths to even say that there were attempts by several people, some of them who were in the government, in the previous government, who had connections in the previous government, at kidnapping Wafula Chebukati, the chairman of the IEBC, with the intention of killing him. There had been a previous attempt that had actually even been orchestrated much earlier on how to recruit 4 commissioners so that they'll just be there on standby. And when the time is ripe, they'll be the ones who come and take over the IEBC and then announce the results, and this and that and the other. Now, Jeremiah, you're having issues with the president coming out to say this. But we look at it from this point. Wafula Chebukati's term in office has come to an end. So has that of Professor Gulie and Molu. The other commissioners resigned Only one is left, but she's been suspended, and that's Irene Masita. She goes through the tribunal process. So no commission in place. There's a bill before Parliament amending how the next commission shall be established in terms of the constitution of the selection panel. So there's a process that's going on here. How are all these things related? Is there a connection between, the move to constitute the next commission versus what the president was saying yesterday versus the need to review and look at what happened in August last year?
There was a time, I think, during the campaigns of Jubilee, 2017, and I think it was at Kasarani, Indo, Marina, when the now president said that NASA then was crewless, radarless, planless, leaderless. I don't know whether I was anything else less. And that description now fits this UDA group completely. You can actually see a team that is clueless as to how the government is supposed to be managed, planless. Look at when they went to Mount Kenya Safari Club the other time. The Safari, is it Safari Club?
It's called Fairmont.
Fairmont, yes.
Mount Kenya Safari Club.
Yes. And that must be done by city. That clarity, Fairmont.
Yes.
Look at what happened. You have ministers, and they come with their teams, and the next minute you're asking them is, who told you to come with others? It is only you I wanted and your PSs. Then a little later, I think the following day, you have done your presentation in the morning, and you tell them to have breakout teams or breakaway, ministers to have, they go to retreat in small groups so that they can discuss your presentation and come up with ministers. They don't have assistants with them. They don't have directors, and they are supposed to come up with positions on policy. Policy, you have to understand how a policy becomes a policy in a ministry, who are involved. If you need to go have breakouts or breakaway teams to come up with, that tells you this is even not a thing that has not been thought through. I would not expect Moses Kuria sitting with Jumwa and you have the others in a team coming up with a policy from the top of their heads.
Mheshimiwa.
I mean, that clearly tells you that we have some work to do. Because whether you're in opposition or in government, you want delivery of services to Kenyans. And we in the opposition have a lot of work to do beyond what we imagined. When I saw that thing, that Fairmount activity, I again got very scared, just like yesterday. Very, very scary things.
What would your answer be to
on
the other side, Jeremiah?
I am thinking, before I leave this, that this government is still trying to buy time to try and get a bearing. Like I said, they are rudderless. So you are thrown into something. There was a murder plot. Then the whole of today, the whole of the coming days, will be engaged in discussing issues that will go nowhere as they try to get some clue on how to manage the government. As they struggle to tell us why is the cost of unga still at 200 shillings plus, while you had promised us, not even after 90 days.
You put the Bible.
As I put the Bible down, the price of unga will come down with it, because it is you, Uhuru, and your team who was responsible of raising the price of unga and the price of fuel, price of electricity. It had nothing to do with the COVID difficulties that we had in this country. It has nothing to do with the Russia and Ukraine war. It has nothing to do with the global economy. It only requires me to sit in that office, and the price of everything will come down. 120 days later, we are actually talking of a government whose term is left is 4 years, technically. They have 4 years, but they have not given a solution to any one issue they laced. They have not delivered on any one promise they made, including that hustler. If you want me to come with chance next time, I'll come and demonstrate to you that this is another con game. You look at the interest rates, hustler is more expensive than the other facilities that are there, and other facilities that have been introduced there in the past.
If the tables were to turn, Jeremiah, I'm sorry, but I have to ask this question because, the criticism, very necessary to have, because in a lot of, instances, that's what keeps people in check, isn't it?
Yes.
So now, if the tables would have been turned and the very same criticism would come against the other side, had they then been in this position, how would you answer that question? Because these questions have been thrown up. You're not the first one, Jeremiah, to ask, why is the price of Unga not coming down?
One of the things we were not going to do as Azimio is to remove subsidies. Subsidies feed in the social support system of your people.
Which subsidy? The Unga subsidy?
The Unga subsidy, the fuel subsidy, and fuel is the one that influences all the other costs of production, cost of travel, cost of everything. So those subsidies had been well thought out. And there are no subsidies being done by Kenyan alone or Kenyan government. We were not doing them alone. You will find them across the country. Even in the US, you can see the amount of money, billions of dollars that they are voting on a regular basis to give that social support to their people. Because the reality is there. COVID disrupted the running of economic activities all over the world. The ability of governments to collect revenue was affected by that COVID maneno of a period of not less than 2 years. Russia invades Ukraine, where we get our grain, wheat, where we also get fuel supply into this region. And again, that affected the cost of fuel in this country, the cost of doing everything, and in the global economy. And we are part of that global system. But when you are talking to people, you don't tell them the reality. You lie and say, it's because Latif is sitting here. That is why these mics cannot go up. One, the difference that would have been there if we were in office is that we were telling the truth. That is why we never overpromised. We talked of free primary, secondary, and university education as part of the social support program. Because the worst that you can do to a country like Kenya, which relies heavily on human resource, it's our strong point as a country. We can export our young people anywhere in the world, and they will go and perform and not embarrass you. Why? Because we have invested over the time in our education system. So when you say free primary and secondary and university education, that it would have helped. Wait until kids start reporting to school next week. You will hear the maneno. School fees, the subsidies that was available
so you're
for
telling
school
us
fees.
that had Azimio won, everybody would have gone back to school this January for free.
And we were going to sacrifice.
In fact, there would even be no need for help because what you're applying for a loan for, university is free anyway. Is that what you're saying?
We were not going to do reversal of policies like this government has done. They have even reversed the uniform of police officers ahead of lowering the cost of Unga. They told the police officers to go back and use the old uniform.
It's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but how does it help a person who is not reporting to school?
Their morale.
But Mheshimiwa,
so we would not have been reversing all the policies that were done by the previous government in a form of vendetta. So issues like help, we were not going to scrap help. But we had promised to ensure that, and we kept repeating it, trying to make people hear. We are saying free primary, free secondary, the free secondary we are talking about. The extra bit of the freeness that we wanted to introduce in the secondary school was clearing this issue of the feeding. You know, there is a 3,000 that now has been increased, that needs to be paid by every. It's the capitation money that we were going to increase so that it covers even what the parents were paying.
The reality is.
And why were we doing this?
Kenyans,
why was this?
Listened to you. Kenyans
Yeah, and I
listened to
agree
Kenya
with you.
Kwanza.
Yes.
Kenyans bought the Kenya Kwanza story. So when you're telling us, you're taking us back to July campaigns.
And I remember
Kenyans
I was
said
answering a question from Luke.
They said, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
Umetuambia ni sawa.
Yes.
We are going this way.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
And I'm also agreeing that they were better. They made better promises than us. But when you make better promises, fulfill them. That is why we now ask.
The issue you have is at the speed at which they're fulfilling their promises.
The issue is you overpromised. You actually lied to Kenyans. And because you lied to Kenyans, you are now looking for reasons as to why we should not concentrate on the lies you told Kenyans.
And we are judging this by 120
including the
days.
statements that they uttered yesterday of people killing one another. That is just a diversionary tactic. It is not meant to mean anything. It will stop holding them to account on what they promised. And I want to tell you, we will not. We are not going to sidetrack us that easily. We will answer you on the issues of bombers. We did the decent thing. We did not stand along the roads of bombers then to say that you wanted to kill so-and-so in bombers. We went to the Supreme Court as decent people with integrity. You follow the constitutional provision. We went to the Supreme Court and reported our unhappiness about the outcome of that result. The manner in which we did not agree in the conduct of that result, including Chebukati running away for 9 hours and appearing with results which he must have prepared himself alone in the table room, and he did not involve the other commissioners, and he announces the results where 26 constituencies had not been factored in. We went and reported all those things to the Supreme Court.
And the Supreme
we were
Court,
told it is hot here.
yes, we did.
We were actually insulted. We still were decent Kenyans, placed Kenyans ahead of everything else and said, even when this was meant to hurt us, we will allow the country to move on. And instead of the president taking on and running the country,
sweeping things under the
he
carpet,
comes over with such hopeless allegations
Mheshimiwa,
like the ones he did yesterday.
Mheshimiwa, have you been in the opposition before?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
How are you finding it?
Oh, it's not a bed of roses. You talked about the snake and the thorns.
Yes, I'm just asking it again because, see, the unfortunate thing is unfortunate in this sense. Anyone who is in the opposition doesn't have a very difficult task because all you do is point and say, this,
Look and see.
this. Not to say that it is not true, but you point. You see, the truth of the matter with this current government that we have, in many ways, is a continuation of the previous government. This president was the deputy president in the previous government. The people who were in government, forget the ministers, these people were in the majority in the previous government. What am I saying? There's a continuum in government functions that is always there, whether one likes it or not. Now, what you seem to be talking about predominantly are the optics. And you're giving a direction and saying the interpretation of these optics is this. What I'm seeing seems to be taking us in this direction. And yet we have, as you say, serious issues that need addressing. And you're saying these optics are what are being used to address our issues instead of the issues being addressed. Would you say I've summarized what you're saying correctly?
Not quite.
Okay. Correct me where I have gone wrong.
Because if it is opposition is that easy, it is just a question of pointing out the ills of the other. Then when we are going for elections, it should be the easier place to choose. But we are all fighting to take lanes of power so that you can bring changes to this country. Meaning that I believe that I can do it better than you. So when you are in power, you should actually do it better than me, because you even, like Latif says, you are believed more than myself. And when I tell you that you are not doing it right, you should not be bitter. You should
Accept
not
the
start
criticism.
making funny allegations of murder You should actually try and use the criticism to prove that I'm actually making nonsense out of a good thing. But this is the reality. When you are coming here this morning, how many vehicles were on the road? You would not have counted them.
No.
But today, I need somebody to tell me what is happening. I was able to drive all the way to town without really having to stop. It was a continuous move. The traffic is not as heavy as it has been. It has been before.
Previously.
When I ask my young people who I was with, they tell me, Mheshimiwa ujui, watu siku hizi ni
Carpool.
Yes. You know, they are pulling together because you can't afford to have everybody cannot afford to have his car on the road every day. It's very expensive. We are now trying to look for ways of cutting down the cost. So you can actually tell things are not easy. And it is upon me to come and say, government work is not to complain. It is not when we see you in front of us, you are complaining as we are complaining. We want to see you telling us the solution to your problems. I have them.
Okay.
In any case, I asked for you the mandate and you gave me. This is what we are going to do.
From the
What solution has been given to us by this government other than complaining every day? Every single day. Now, I thought the deputy was the better complainer until yesterday when his head even did worse. He actually outdid his deputy.
You didn't take that issue lightly, did you?
I did, and we are not going to stop at that because we lost these elections on an account of a steal
You're like a deer in the headlights.
managed by Chebukati. And we have issues with Chebukati. And this head of state, William, instead of now trying to drive the country forward, he wants to take us back
to what you were trying to do.
to what we were trying to avoid happening. Not just us, but even those who died,
Previously, in previous
including
elections.
Robia, Muge, Matiba. They died fighting for this.
Final question, Ndu.
There's an important
before
one.
the final question.
Because the time is, Mheshimiwa, is there unity in the opposition? Right now, we're looking at parties who may be disgruntled because of one to the other. Is there unification in this opposition that you speak so vehemently about?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yes.
The joy about where we are is even if there was going to be disunity, this government is forcing us to be unified. If we don't get united, we will have a problem as a country. We have unity in Azimio. We are committed to the cause that Kenyans gave us, and that is of opposition, articulating their issues, and we will continue articulating them. In September last year, and you can get this from IMF, the country grew at 9.3%. December, we had hit 4.3. Those are figures from IMF. They are not from us. We can't allow ourselves to continue going down without saying it. In any case, this government has only 4 years to go.
Yeah.
Kenyans must know that this is a government of one term, not 2 terms.
Jeremiah KIONI, thank you very much for joining us. Jeremiah
Masai
KIONI.
imekwisha.
Masai imekwisha hivyo tu. He's the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. Yeah, you'll come again. I mean, you like you said, you are playing that role of pointing out the areas where the government promised and it's not fulfilling its promises. Jeremiah KIONI, again, is the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today.